Hey everyone, it's Mark Hespin, host of On the Mark on News Talk 1070 KHMO. You can follow me on all social media platforms, Twitter/X, Instagram, and here on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Mark Hespin, MarkHespen. Make sure you tune in to On the Mark every Saturday morning on News Talk 1070 KHMO, also on the KHMO app. And follow along the show on Facebook. Just search On the Mark KHMO on Facebook. We're in the middle of the week. It's a Wednesday here. It's Valentine's Day. And what I like to do during these middle week sessions is I'm starting to build up to the show on Saturday, realizing I got a ton to talk about. I could just open up the iPhone here, start recording, and just start breaking down Super Bowl 58. But I want to save a lot of that for Saturday's show. One of the topics I think I wanted to take and use this video time for to really kind of dive deeper on, as opposed to diving deep to it on the show, is the Niners and the Brock Purdy situation. I've seen some stuff online, people saying the Niners need to maybe draft a quarterback, need to go get Kirk Cousins, they need to move on from Brock Purdy, that he was not good enough to win the game, and kind of laying the blame on Brock Purdy. So let's dive into this, shall we? I call this the kind of Mahomes effect. That's what's happening here. There's this kind of a haze that's being put into all of our brains because of Patrick Mahomes. Bears fans, we're going through it right now because all of Bears Twitter is arguing, well, in order to compete, you need someone who's just like Patrick Mahomes, and Caleb Williams is just like Patrick Mahomes, and that's going to solve all of our problems. Yes and no. I think there's truth to that, and there's obviously huge false fallacies to that, right? Let's focus on Brock Purdy, though, and this kind of Mahomes effect, because we got to watch 4 hours of Brock Purdy versus Mahomes. It was obvious with our eyes why one is considered one of the all-time greats, and why one is a guy who is barely drafted and is being paid the league minimum and is thought of as like a really talented guy who should be a starting quarterback, but he's good. He's no more than good. And what the Niners, though, have in this unique situation they've built is that Purdy is perfect for where they're at right now. Obviously, if the Niners if they could snap their fingers and have C.J. Stroud or Josh Allen or, or Joe Burrow, would they do that? Duh. Don't be stupid. They, of course, would do that if they could. We know Kyle Shanahan was trying to get Brady. He was trying to make moves. He's always been interested in Kirk Cousins. But at this point in time, Brock Purdy is better than an old Kirk Cousins drafting a rookie late in the first round, or trying to sign some veteran off the street type of, who's even out there. Mitch Trubisky just got released today from Pittsburgh. So absolutely, I think the Niners should stick with Brock Purdy going into next season. They're in a very similar spot to where they were 4 years ago, after Super Bowl 58, when they lost to the Chiefs. You had Jimmy G. He didn't play great, but he didn't cost you the game. And they rolled with Jimmy G going into the next year. The problem with Jimmy G was then he was expensive. They'd already paid him at that point in time, and he was injured. He got injured in that season following the Super Bowl, and that's when they went out and traded all that draft capital, and they went up and sold their soul to try to get Trey Lance. Didn't work out, and we all know where Trey Lance is now, backing up Dak Prescott in Dallas, which all led to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's in the exact same scenario. And Brock Purdy will be the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers for the next 2 years if he stays healthy and performs still at a really reasonable, nice level. As long as his performance doesn't completely drop off and they miss the playoffs or he's massively injured, then he should be fine. He absolutely will be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers going forward. They're not paying him a ton. He works perfectly in Shanahan's system. He wins a ton. He is a better than average NFL quarterback, certainly by his numbers. He's a top 5 quarterback. I mean, he was one of only 4 guys this year to throw for 4,000 yards and over 30 touchdowns. And so the production is there. Everything's there with Purdy. And again, you're not paying him for a really expensive veteran roster. So no, I think it's ridiculous to say right now the Niners should move off of Brock Purdy. Now, if in a year from now he underperforms, he's really injured, well, then you can start making the case for the San Francisco 49ers to say, you know what? Just not working. We're not going to commit to him long-term, because at that point in time, you're going to have to start figuring out, are we paying this guy? Are we signing him to a long-term deal? And if Purdy's wanting 35, 40 million plus, you just can't do that. From what I've seen right now, you just can't do that. The only guys you could pay 35, 40 million plus to, I would, are the guys who are Mahomes or Mahomes light, where they can compete on their best day with Patrick Mahomes. And in the league right now, I think there's only 3 of those guys, and that's Lamar, that's Burrow, and that's Allen. On their best days, best of best days, those 3 guys can beat Mahomes if everything kind of goes right for them. That's what makes Mahomes so special. He doesn't need everything to go right for them, or to even have the better roster, or to even be at home, as we just saw with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, to beat those guys. But Allen, Burrow, and Lamar are the 3 next where it's like, on their best day, if things go right, they absolutely could find a way to beat Mahomes in a playoff game. There's a couple guys, C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert, that are right there. They're in the glimpse of Jalen Hurts right there. They're close. We've seen it in moments, but we need to see it more consistently and on the bigger stages. And now with some turmoil with Justin Herbert, what's going on with his new coach and Stroud, sophomore slump possibly. And we know with Hurts had a comeback to earth year this year. So that's why they're not, to me, in that tier yet. So focusing back on the Niners and Brock Purdy, absolutely, you roll with Brock Purdy, and you address this in a year from now. You have another year of your window being open. You're absolutely a top 3 team in the NFC going into next year before the draft, before free agency. If they can keep the majority of that roster together, they have the best coach in the NFC, I'd argue. They have the best system in the NFC. They have the best roster in the NFC. Detroit's not going anywhere. Green Bay is going to get better. Philly and Dallas, we'll see if they retool. I think the Rams will get better, but overall, the Niners should still be the favorites in the NFC, the start of next year. And so you roll with Brock Purdy at that point in time. You see what happens in the after the season, how it ends. If they miss the playoffs, if Brock Purdy takes a huge regression, well, then yeah, you move on. You don't pay a guy like that much money because you just saw what he was 1v1. And he's just not the guy. He didn't make the big play on 3rd and 5 late in the game. He couldn't make the throw to Deebo Samuel late in the game in those big moments. Doesn't mean that if he gets a chance to go back to the Super Bowl again next year, and maybe they end up playing the Bengals or a different team, that Brock Purdy's not a Super Bowl champion. Heck, if the ball didn't hit off of one of his special team players, teammates' ankles, and the Chiefs don't recover and get a touchdown, the Niners, he may already be a Super Bowl champion, and we're not talking about them moving on from Brock Purdy anyways. The loss is why we're bringing this up, and I would say don't overreact to the loss. And for the people who, I'll explain a little bit more of the Mahomes effect on the show Saturday, but in general, what I'm trying to say is you have fan bases right now, mine one of them, bear down, that are absolutely obsessed with this idea of like, you've got to find Mahomes or the next Mahomes. It's the only way you can win a Super Bowl. I think the Niners just showed you it's not the only way you can win a Super Bowl. You can build up a really great roster. And if you have solid play from your quarterback, great head coaching, and a really, really good roster, you can absolutely win a Super Bowl. If that was the Bills that the Niners were playing or something else happened, or if, again, the ball doesn't bounce the right off the guy's foot, the Niners, maybe we talk about them as Super Bowl champions. It's not like they were blown out in the game. They had no chance against Mahomes. They held the Chiefs to only 2 touchdowns in that game. I mean, they were in it. Now, I'd argue that, yes, you could make the case that their quarterback wasn't special enough. He wasn't elite enough in the big moments to go out and win that Super Bowl. Fair. That's fine. But don't overreact. That Brock Purdy will be the starting quarterback for the Niners next year. Will he be the starting quarterback for the Niners going into 2025? I'm not going to make that prediction yet. I want to see how next year goes. And so for a lot of these teams out here across the NFL, I'm speaking to my own. I'm speaking to teams like the Commanders who are going to be drafting a quarterback and all this. Don't get too caught up in having to find the guy who can just beat Mahomes. There are other ways to beat the Chiefs and take care of Mahomes. And the Chiefs are going to have to do a lot of work to keep this thing rolling. No team's ever won 3 in a row. History is stacked against them. The Super Bowl isn't won already next year by the Kansas City Chiefs. It's still out there, and the Niners have a good chance. With Brock Purdy, their quarterback, I think they have a good chance. And this is coming from a guy who's been really critical of Brock Purdy all year long. I'm just trying to calm the waters, say don't overreact. Stick with Brock Purdy for at least another year before you have to figure out if you're going to pay him and all that stuff. Tune in every Saturday morning on the Mark News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai. Follow me on YouTube here. Like and subscribe to all the things that you do here on YouTube. And then follow me on X / Twitter, Instagram at Mark Hespin. Follow the show on the Mark KHMO on Facebook. We'll see you Saturday.